Hey friends, today we're going to visit the Saint Augustine Lighthouse, one of my favorites. As you enter in the lighthouse entrance and visitor center, you will first have to walk through an area called a Maritime Hammock. It's formed as the coastline receded, creating stabilized beach dunes that allow for larger growth trees. Though maritime hammocks extend the Atlantic and Gulf Coast, the Pacific mix of live oak, red bay, and cabbage palm found in this maritime hammock extends from southern Georgia to Cape Canaveral. The shrub layer consists of saw palmetto, yawpon, and wax myrtle. From the tower, you will actually see some ospreys, and they're common inhabitants of the maritime hammock. They're avid fishermen, and you can see them from the lighthouse. Walking through the trails, you may spot lizards, skinks, rabbits, the eastern cottontail, mice, raccoons, and possibly even a gopher tortoise. From the tower, you may spot red-shouldered and Cooper's hawks, ospreys, bald eagles, and spoonbills roosting in their nest or flying over the treetops. Some ask, do sailors still use the lighthouse? And the answer is yes. The lighthouse still gives sailors a reference for St. Augustine's location. In fact, the black and white stripes and the red top, which you can see from here, let sailors know that they are off St. Augustine. It's called a day mark, and each lighthouse is unique, so sailors can tell them apart. No other lighthouse has this color scheme. March 31st, 1936, electricity is used for the first time in the lighthouse lens. The glow of the lens changed from the yellow of a kerosene lamp to the white of electricity.
We're dying. We are dying. Okay, folks, we made it to the top. Andrew and I did. Way back in the background from over Andrew's shoulder, you can see the old town of St. Augustine. It's a beautiful day, a little sprinkling raining up here, but after you climb 10 billion stairs to the top, a little wind and rain feels good.
If you're afraid of heights, this may not be where you want to be. Isn't it beautiful? A British Army surgeon who visited St. Augustine in 1784 wrote that a ship was wrecked on the coast every 2 weeks to a month. One couldn't walk 100 paces on the beach without seeing the skeleton of a foundered ship or its wreckage. He mused that should the sea withdraw after centuries, it would be an astonishing thing to come upon the relics of these ships. Now, while we cannot part the seas, archaeologists at the St. Augustine Lighthouse and Maritime Museum can dive beneath the waves to investigate 4.5 centuries of lost ships. The Lighthouse Archaeological Maritime Program serves as the research arm of the museum, employs professional maritime archaeologists and conservators who work in the water, on the beaches, and in the laboratory.
That dot way down there by the green building, oops, she found a bench to sit on, is Renee. Since she broke her ankle in San Miguel de Allende, it's been a little difficult for her for climbing stairs, and this would have taken more time than we have to have climbed to the top of the stairs.
Looking down from a high height, you can see much of the surrounding buildings and the landscape below. The current lighthouse that you see stands at the north end of Anastasia Island, and it was built between 1871 and 1874. This is the second lighthouse tower in St. Augustine, the first being lit officially by the American territorial government in May of 1824 as Florida's first lighthouse. The current lighthouse tower, original first-order Fresnel lens, and the light station grounds are owned by the St. Augustine Lighthouse and Maritime Museum. It's a not-for-profit maritime museum. It's open to the public 360 days out of the year. This cutaway shows the iron and brick construction.
Went all the way to the top, as you saw. of the Saint Augustine Lighthouse. That thing is gorgeous, and what a view you have from up there. In hiking, a lot of times going downhill is harder than going uphill. It's a strain on your knees. It compacts the joints there, and it's painful. In this case, coming down the lighthouse was a heck of a lot easier than going up the lighthouse. I mean, I was winded. It about killed me getting to the top of the lighthouse, but coming down, it's a piece of cake. It's kind of like falling gracefully.
The white building with the brown shingle roof was barracks for coasties stationed here while lightkeepers still lived in the keeper's house. The green roof building was used by the Coast Guard originally in 1936 as a Jeep repair facility and garage. Now it serves as their maintenance department. During World War II, German U-boats patrolled the shipping lanes off the coast of Florida, attacking cargo ships carrying vital supplies across the Atlantic. For this reason, the Coast Guard maintained a strong presence at our lighthouse and used what is now Flagler College as a United States Coast Guard training facility. Beginning in 1941, members of the Coast Guard, known as coasties or guardsmen, lived here on site in small barracks while serving as lookouts at the top of the lighthouse. St. Augustine lighthouse keeper Joseph Andrew fell to his death while he was painting the first St. Augustine Tower in 1859. His wife, Maria, became the first Hispanic woman to serve as a lightkeeper in the United States. In 1862, a prison boat sat in St. Augustine Harbor. Locked aboard was Paul Arnaud, Confederate sympathizer and the collector of customs for the port of St. Augustine. Arnaud was held until he revealed the location of the Fresnel lens and the lighthouse clockworks that had been hidden in the countryside the year before. This is the keeper's house. The parlors were located on the first floor, where the family spent their leisure time, including entertaining guests, reading, and playing games. We would call these rooms our living rooms or family rooms today. The second floor, the bedrooms were there. Each family had 2 bedrooms, one for the keeper and his wife, and the other for any children living with them. The second assistant keeper had a small room that straddled the two sides. Now, basements are uncommon in Florida for obvious reasons, especially as close to the ocean as the keeper's house is. Usually when you're 4 feet into Florida soil, you're in a swimming pool. The basement is possible because as a former beach dune, the elevation of the lighthouse is higher above sea level than much of the Florida coast. Keepers used the basement for storage and collected rainwater in the cisterns. Currently in the keeper's house, the lower level, or the basement, is called wrecked. The main level is the keeper's house and is restored as it would have been many, many years ago. And the upper level is a display about shrimping ain't easy. And it's a fascinating learning experience. Seen here are divers doing archaeological research and excavation on the shore just off the coast of the lighthouse. Displayed here are many of the items that they have brought up. The Harn family was the first keeper's family to live in this home when it was completed in 1875. This room likely served as the Harns' dining room, and much like today, schoolwork would have been completed here. Other daily tasks not suitable for the formal parlor, such as repairing socks, called darning at the time, and preparing food would have been done in this room as well. They also spent much of their day working outside. The stove in the fireplace was used for heating during the cooler months, as most cooking would have taken place in the outdoor kitchen. This room served many purposes over the time that lighthouse keepers' families lived here, depending on the time period and the needs of individual families. Historical documents show that this room was also used as a bedroom and second parlor by subsequent keepers' families. The parlor was a formal area where guests were received and entertained. All of the family's finest items and furnishings would have been in this room to show off the best of the family. As the head lighthouse keeper, William Harn and his family would have had a standing in the community and an expectation of community involvement. One way they met this expectation was by receiving guests on a regular basis, particularly after Henry Flagler opened the Ponce de Leon Hotel, now Flagler College, in 1888 in downtown Saint Augustine. This new upscale hotel brought tourists from all over the eastern seaboard of the United States. Newspaper reports from the period indicate that Kate Harn and her daughters were well known for their hospitality and regularly served refreshments including lemonade, coffee, and tea. Playing games and musical instruments, reading popular books aloud, and working on sewing and craft projects were typical activities with their guests. Though many middle and upper class Victorian households would not have used the parlor except when company was present, the Harn family would probably have used it more out of necessity. With 7 to 8 people living in a small home with 2 bedrooms upstairs and 2 rooms downstairs, daily use by family members was likely for small sewing or craft projects, and when possible, a place to read and relax after a hard day's work. The first lighthouse tower was built in May of 1824. The first tower was 52 feet. The second tower, 165 feet or 50 meters. The first tower was a square tower. This second tower that you see is a conical tower. Thank you so much for watching our channel, subscribing, and for sharing. We very much appreciate you going along on the journey with us. Thank you so much. Dios te bendiga, mi amigos.